to yet another episode of the Three Wise Guys podcast. It's your boy Arya. I'm here with Dolapo. I'm here with Luke. And this is a late start to the day for us because we had a lot of fun last night. And we had all of our friends over. And we played some games. And we won some money. And other people won some money.
No, we mainly lost money, I think. I think we overwhelmingly lost money, actually.
Yeah, well, it depends on the way you look at it. But seven!
I'll put in a clip of Luke winning that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Davin was taking some good videos. Yeah. Like, make sure you put that in later. There was one video, I think, I don't know, I think it was a couple people like betting, and they were like, yeah, like 7, 4, 7, 9, whatever number they needed.
Yeah, I remember going to Luke and I was like, all you need is a 7 right now, and he's like, okay, 7.
Seven. I'm not gonna go. 7.
Seven.
Hit a 7 or a 2.
7. Give me 7.
No, he's a
Get
I mean, with the number of numbers coming out of the basement yesterday, you would think we were having like a math conference or something.
The screams coming out of the basement too.
Yeah, that was
like, you were there the whole time.
I was there.
I was upstairs at times, and I would hear, I mean, what is, I just sound money. I hear money leaving my pocket.
Dude, and all I know, like, I was there and just was dealing with screaming people. I'm just like, I'm exhausted. Just having to, like, see all the energy, and then people just constantly getting distracted as well.
Our eyes were falling out of our faces halfway through, I think.
Yeah, but it was an awesome time. Like Arya said, it was great seeing people, and like, you know, like we obviously hosted a decent amount of friends, and I feel like it was, obviously I didn't interact as much with the main party going on upstairs, which is like the typical party with Luke's food standing out and everyone being like, oh my gosh, Luke, your pizza is awesome. Kind of jealous, obviously. You guys, people are not like
it was really good pizza, by the way.
Yeah, and like obviously people loved Luke's cheeses as well, so that's for the typical party. But watching people interact with the games downstairs was just very interesting. Like our friend Mish, you know, like I did not take Mish to be someone that would enjoy the games.
We corrupted her throughout the course of the night. Because like at the beginning of the night, she was really not about it. She's like, okay, I'll gamble.
Yeah, I think she was way more into it than
her fiance.
Sunday. She's telling Sunday was losing all the money and she's winning all the money.
No, at one point I was running like after Davin left. Shout out Davin and his brother, by the way.
Oh,
like,
yes.
phenomenal people.
Yes.
They ran a roulette
Park
table.
Brothers. That's what we should call them. Park Brothers.
After they left, I did a few hands of roulette for people, and Sunday kept putting hands down, and he would win a little bit and hand it to Mish.
Yeah.
And she'd spend it on craps, and then she would win and she would give it back to him. And he was
Yeah, that is absolutely what they had going. Because Mish was like, no, craps is my game.
Oh my gosh.
You good. And I think Sunday was more comfortable with roulette. Yeah.
Just really quick for the viewers, what was the theme of the party? What was going on?
So the theme was, I don't know, was it completely legal what we did, by the way? Yeah, friends. Well, I mean, I don't know if that makes much of a difference, but yeah, like it was casino themed. It was games and parlays, poker and roulette and craps. Those are our main guys. It was completely bootleg.
Yeah, completely bootleg. I mean, obviously very friendly because we're not a casino and we're playing with friends and family. So we made the games very, very simple. You know, we capped the bets, you know, and like, you know, we mainly wanted to have a good time doing something a little bit different, giving people a different experience. And glad to say, I think the wise guys succeeded, including Davin. Davin was a big part of making this, and I loved how everyone was like, yeah, the Park brothers were like the casino commission.
They were.
They were, yeah.
They were like, these are the muscle.
Like, both of you guys had your hair bleached too. You guys look the same.
They came in black, and then like when I had questions, like Davin would come up and like he'd help search the stuff, and I'd make sure like he was cool with it, and then you guys were like, oh yeah, he's got to check in with the bosses. I was like, yeah, so. Yeah, it was casino night themed, and we had the games. We usually play poker with some friends. We had like a nice poker game going, and it was good to have the other games going. And yeah, it was just fun. I had a blast. I was like Mr. Dealer with my little vest, like in the basement, and yeah, like I was there like all night working
All night. Shout out D too. Yeah, shout out D and Luke. Like they were on their feet. Luke was cooking all night. D was handing the tables all night.
Shout out Tamia. She might have been the most worked.
She was working hard. She was bartending the whole night. Yeah, big shout out for that.
And afterwards, like we were like when we were cleaning up, like she was doing the dishes. And like all that, like it was literally like I was thinking like from yesterday, like I think from the moment we got up until I think for me it was around like 12. It was like just fully like, okay, do this and then next and then next and then next and next. And then I like 12, like I was finished cooking. I brought everything inside and then like I started to like let loose a little bit. But like, yeah, like I don't think Tamia took her foot off the gas at any point. At all. And she was definitely like big part. So shout out to her. Shout out to
thank you for everyone who tipped her too.
Yes.
Danny and Davin as well. Like they were at the roulette tables all night. Like all I needed to do was look left. Like like my guys were right there, and like they came. You guys came in as well when like the table was getting hot, and then, like and like they'd come in and do all of that. So like it was fun. And then obviously Luke and his food. You want to tell us what the menu was? Because obviously like I tasted some of the pizza, and the pizza as I said was pretty good. I won't lie, I doubted your skills. I did not tell you this. But
you told me this.
I told Aria, and I was like, I'm not the most confident in this cooking pizza on a grill outside while it's 5 degrees mission.
And I fully retorted with, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I can do it better than Luke.
Yeah, and that was how we concluded. We're like, yeah, we both can't do anything better, so we're just going to shut up and hope for the best. So tell us.
I think it turned out pretty well, like, because like I think they like I got a pizza stone, so that was like I wouldn't have done this if I didn't have the pizza stone. But honestly, like,
what's a pizza stone? I'd never heard of that until you got it, and then I remember Davin was like, "Oh, you got a pizza stone?" I was like, "Oh, so like you know what this is? This is a thing."
It's kind of just like a surface for emulating like an actual pizza oven.
Okay.
From what I understand, it probably has like the way I understand it, the stone has heat carrying properties, so it evenly distributes the heat better. And then like the key for a lot of like wood fire pizzas is like the crust, right? So like when you have a pizza stone, it ensures that the crust is good. But pro tip for if you're ever doing pizza on the barbecue, because like honestly, first of all, I think I bought I did buy dough. Like I think I bought like 10 packs of dough, which made like 20 plus pizzas. And I thought I was gonna make like maybe 10 of them and have like 10 left over, but like we finished everything.
We finished. You made 20 pizzas.
Yeah, like it was like in the beginning, I thought people weren't eating that much, and then I come in, and then like I guess it just like it hit a point around like 8 where the liquor starts to really hit people, and like every time I took in a pizza, it was like gone in like a second, and I'll come out, and by the end there was no sauce. So the last one I did like bacon jam and like cheese and prosciutto, and like apparently that was people's favorite, so I should have just made more of those. But the key
bacon
actually
jam base.
Yeah, like so it was like it's kind of like if you do like a fig jam with like brie, sometimes
I don't know what a
do
fig.
that.
I'm African. What's fig?
Well,
jam?
Like brie, like sometimes
you know what fig jam
people
is.
do like brie and like jam.
Wait a second, you guys don't have figs in Africa, or like you guys don't have jam in Africa?
We have jam. We have strawberry jam, apricot jam.
Okay, so you know what a fig is, though?
Was it like the
It's a
flower?
fruit.
The fruit flower?
It's a fruit?
Okay,
a fig? What does a fig look like?
It's
I'm
like
an idiot, okay?
It looks like kind of like a teardrop of brown.
Yeah.
It's like very sweet. It's like
kind of like a chestnut, but it's a fruit.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then the inside is like red and
it's like wrinkly and stuff too.
Oh, really? I knew like fig tree, but like I didn't know a fig was a fruit.
Yeah.
All this to say, if you guys are ever making pizzas on the grill, because I did half of them, and then the other half I did something different, and it turned out way better, which was I actually pre-cooked the dough. So like I would leave it on the barbecue for like like maybe like a minute on either sides, and then afterwards when I sauced it, I would actually cook it directly on the grate, and it gave it like a really good texture. So like the latter half was better than the former, but unfortunately I only started doing that a little bit later on, so that was good. But yeah, it was lots of fun, and I was actually thinking this at some part in the party. I was like, this feels very much like the different parties in when you're running like a event hall. And I was thinking about how like me and Aria, we worked as servers, and like I bartended at university, and like that side of things is like one thing where like you're entertaining and like you're kind of like making sure people are okay. But then like there's this whole other universe, which is like the kitchen, and like they're also like just back there doing their own thing. And like I guess I kind of like felt like that yesterday. I was like, I'm kind of like, outside, and like I'm doing my thing, and like.
Were you alone? Were there people with you outside?
Yeah, there was like different people coming out, keeping me company and stuff, feeding me like beers and stuff.
Like
it was like Vlad came out a couple times, Connor and Terry.
Dude, at one point, pretty much the whole party was outside. It was funny. At one point, there was 3 different points. There was one point where everyone was just here upstairs. There was another point where everyone was outside, and then there was one point where everybody was in the basement. And it was crazy.
I think the thing I did want to say though was like, one, shout out to everyone who came as well, because obviously like we are in the West End. It's not always the easiest to come, but like I think the one thing, like a few people I was talking to were like, it's really cool that we do events like this, because obviously like 2024 or some, like people feel lonely nowadays. I guess it's like a general stats in society, right? And I think all the time like people talk about that, and that's kind of it, right? Like no one actually wants to take action, and like no one definitely wants to host. So like again, I hope to continue doing these things, but like it is effort, and then I'm just thankful for everyone involved, because it's easy to be like, how it's like there's always that classic saying where it's like we need more guys like him. No, like we actually need to more people need to be like him. So it's like kind of we instead of just being like more people need to socialize, we're gonna actually create an environment where people come and socialize. So a couple of people told me like, yeah, like thank you for doing this. We're like, for example, like yesterday, Dan and my coworker Marcel and Davin at one point were just all talking about like art stuff, and they were like sharing contacts, and I was like, see, this is cool. Like this is awesome. What this is all about, right? Like these are like the moments that we try to like create when you have these like social outings. And then Dan messaged me this morning, and I was like, fuck, like I have.
Yeah, he messaged me too.
Yeah, I was like,
I'm glad he had a good time. It looked like, because like I love, like I love Dan, and like he's an artist, like
he is truly
in like every sense of the word. And with artists, you can never be too careful, because if an artist thinks something's not cool, then they're not into it at all. Like, you know what I mean? Like if a dad would have just been coming and poking jokes and be like, dude, your party flopped so hard. Like he is the kind of person to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But like he genuinely like stayed, like, and he's also desi, which means like,
which means what, Dolapo?
Which means
tell the camera what that means right now.
I love my Daisy people. It just means that might not want to spend his money, man. But like, but Dan came in, and shout out to my guy, man. He just got signed as a director to a production house. So yeah, watch out for my boy Dan Zia. He's coming in with the movie 2026, I hope. So yeah, no, like I'm glad he texted me. He had like a blast, and this is one I used to work with and saw every day for like years. So like I'm just glad we created an environment. And it was also my only friend that showed up other than my girlfriend. So yeah, shout out to all my other friends that didn't show up.
Shout out to all my other friends that didn't show.
No, for real. I'll say this. Shout out to fucking Sharif for pulling through at 10. Bro,
later than 10.
But later than 10.
Dude, it was like 11:45.
He came here to watch the fight.
Everyone was leaving.
Absolutely. I'll say this, man. A lot of my Scarborough friends did not show up. You guys have one more chance. Like next event, you guys don't pull up. No more invites to any of these. Like we're going forward, okay? And like you guys know who you are. You guys cancel the day of. Like message me the day of.
Dude,
pretending like this, like there weren't text blasts going out.
Do you get me?
Like reminding people about this shit.
I'm glad our friends are the same, because I'm getting ready and I'm doing things, and people, like, my phone is buzzing, like
blowing up.
People are calling me, and I'm like, there's only one reason, and this is at like 2 p.m. too, right? It's not like it's like 7 a.m., 8 a.m. Like there's only one reason why you're calling and texting me at 2 p.m. on the day of my party. It is to cancel. I did not pick up any of the calls. I read the text messages and I was like, all good, no worries. I appreciate the heads up. So yeah, like shout out to you guys though.
I'd like to shout out my friends. Most of them actually showed up.
Yeah, you had a
Most of
good
my
turnout,
invitees
yeah.
showed up. I
you had a good
appreciate you
turnout.
so much. Thank you.
Which is what always happens during our parties. It's like all of Arya's friends end up coming, and then it becomes an Arya party. You know, which is fire.
I mean, also like shout out to so many people we didn't see for so long, like Sammy.
Sammy,
Like,
bro.
what a
Sammy was one of the
surprise! That
best
was
surprises.
that was so
I was so
pleasant.
happy.
So
to
for
see
those of you who don't know, we have a friend of ours who has basically been in Spain for the past year. He's been studying, and he was actually in Lebanon for the past like couple months, I want to say as well. And he was there when everything was going down, all the bombs were running, and he was seeing all that. So happy to see he's safe, but he fully surprised us. He showed up, he did not tell us, and that was great.
Yeah,
It's always good to see people coming together, different people coming together. All of our friends get to interact with each other, meet new people, talk about new things, talk about things they're interested in.
Yeah.
Like Luke said, this is why we do it. So we really appreciate everybody who came.
It's also so funny that like among our different friends, like there's actually a lot of similarities. Like like my girlfriend this morning was like pulling me aside and was like, "Oh, how do you guys know Tony?" And I was like, "Oh, like the Dolapo was roommates with Tony in first year. Tony housed me for a bit before I moved into my place in second year. We went to Queens where we saw Terry and Connor for
with
St.
Tony.
Patrick's Day.
Yeah, he drove. I remember that.
Yeah, like me and him took turns driving. Josh came with us that time too, and then like it was. And then like, cause she was asking me because she was like mixing up Tony and Connor. And I was like,
Oh my
I get that though, because it's like,
They do have
not only do they have
extremely similar personalities.
yeah, they have like a similar look and vibe, and they have huge personalities.
Huge.
It's just one's Arab, one's Mediterranean. That's pretty much it.
Actually, yeah. That explains everything.
Straight up, yeah.
Like, they might be the same person.
And thank God, like Sharif came as late as he did and as intoxicated as he did, because the moment Sharif walked through the door, Connor was like, "My arch nemesis has arrived."
Oh my God.
It's like no one needs to black out and like go to the hospital tonight.
Oh, jeez.
All things considered, it was tame.
Yeah, it was
I'd say it was
very
pretty
nice.
tame.
Yeah, I'm glad no one said
It wasn't that
anything wild.
we were preparing for the worst. We had we had a lot of RSVPs. And obviously, if you see the background, it looks completely normal. Like, no, we took apart all of the furniture, all the rugs, everything. Like, this place was empty. So
Shout out to Arya for that. Like, I remember people were like,
the plan.
"Damn, like the house looks different," and I was like, "Yeah, like Arya had a vision and he executed on it."
we all did a great job. We all had the decor. We put it up, and we all played our roles. And I think we all played our roles really well. And I think, we still have some decor.
Yeah, everyone's looking.
We
up.
didn't get everything. Why did we give up here?
I don't know. That was
we did
nice
everything, and we just kind of like gave up on this.
nah, that's fine.
It's fine.
It's okay. It's red. It's like Christmas.
It's fine. Well, I remember like a little, like maybe last year, the year before, for Christmas, we put up snowflakes.
Yeah, we
on
did,
the ceiling, and then those ended up staying there for maybe like 6 months. After
A little too long.
done. But yeah, like we all played our roles really well. I think, one thing we get asked about a lot is like hosting. Like hosting is, like Luke said, it's a very tough thing to do. And you really only have to do it you only should do it if you actually enjoy it. Like it's one of those things that's really hard, but the payoff is really good. Both like while you're doing it's not that great, but like while the party's happening, you get that positive feedback, that positive reinforcement, and then afterwards, when everyone sends you messages, it's always heartwarming. It's nice. It makes it worth it. It makes all the hard work worth it. But and you guys can see a little bit about what goes into hosting a Three Wise Guys party.
Yeah. It was a interesting experience. I think like at this point we're really good at it in terms of like just dividing out the responsibilities and figuring out like what we need to get, like how that rolls out in terms of even like, because like that's the thing I feel like most people don't talk about with these things is like it's actually pretty easy when you think about like, okay, what do you need to do for a party? You need to have food, you need to have drinks, and you need to send out invites, right? It's like it's not like that complex. You need music, right? Like you need to set the place up properly. But then it's like it's the actually like, okay, we're gonna have food. This is what we're gonna have. But like, where are you gonna go and buy the materials? How much it's gonna cost? Like one of the things that like I feel like I didn't really realize was a big undertaking until we started hosting these. Like when we moved in basically 2 years ago, was like with the food, it's like how do you coordinate that in the middle of a party? Because it's like your house is a space, right? Like you can't just be like fucking taking up like, because as you guys can see, like if you guys can see the back, that's our kitchen, right? That's like what, like a fourth of our living area.
And for some
More
reason,
than-
I don't know what it is. Every time we throw a party,
Everyone goes
everyone
to the
goes to
kitchen.
the fucking kitchen.
Everyone just
Yeah.
gathers
Like,
there.
everyone just gathers it right away, and it's like
Yeah.
we have to get to the fridge, you have to get to the backyard. Like there's all this space we have set up, and everyone just wants to be in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's the kitchen's
Like,
the biggest bottleneck.
I don't understand,
People
but-
try to go out to smoke. People try to get water and ice. It's just like it's a mess.
It's a
And, like,
mess.
You don't even think about that. Like you don't even think about like, oh, okay, I'll just do like, for example, you could be like, I'll just do frozen pizzas, but it's like, how the fuck are you gonna get to the oven? And then now you have a oven that's on next to like 20 people,
20
who are in the
people.
kitchen. So it's like one of those things where like it sounds super basic, right? A lot of these things, and it probably is, but it's like the doing it is a lot harder, I guess.
Yeah,
It's like anything.
It's not as straightforward. And I think one of the things about hosting too is like, you know, like obviously you can have like a regular party, but I think one thing that we've been really good with is like, you know, we try and do something different. We try and do themed parties, and not like corny themed parties. Like we're not doing toga
We're not corny
parties.
people.
Like, you know, we're not doing toga parties. Or we're not doing, I mean, okay, and looks like Luke wants to do a toga party.
They're all-
Yeah, I'm gonna remind Davin later. I'm gonna send you a picture of Luke. Of Dolapo and Ola going to their toga party. Actually, Luke was there too. There's the three of them going to their toga party in uni.
But like, yeah, that was like, oh, we're in uni and we're idiots, and like we didn't throw that party. Like, you know, we're not doing like, I don't know what other quarter.
It's the cliches. Like I feel like the cliches.
Like, yeah, so yeah, we're doing like what's it called? We're doing all white parties, we're doing like gambling parties, we're doing different things that are not as corny.
Sorry, I got distracted because on the Uber order, you literally said like, "Do not knock."
Also,
Idiots.
can I say this? I've never had this issue on Uber where if I say leave at door, like I feel like I never get a knock for some reason. It's like
I don't. This is why he's not getting a tip. Okay.
You better change your mind right now. You're on camera.
No, I'm not changing my mind. That's okay. Hate me. Yeah.
No, it's okay. We can
yeah, it's
leave.
fine,
We'll get it.
Yeah. But I know like obviously like talking about the party and going through that like was super cool. All the gambling, but one of the topics I thought like would be really relevant, like just giving the amount of people and the variety of people that we had in the house yesterday, was kind of just like how people frameworks with which people approach life. And by what I mean there is like value systems that people make decisions based out of. And just as an example, I think for most of like our lives, at least growing up pretty young, and I think during my parents' age, like religion was one of the primary ways that like at least that my parents like evaluated and like tried to outsource like, you know, a value system or some kind of moral compass. Like I grew up in a Protestant Christian home, Pentecostal, whatever. It's just a more lax Christians that do whatever they want. Actually, yes, that's how I think of it. But it's the version of Christianity that believes in like the Holy Spirit and like in the what happened with the apostles and where they started speaking different languages. And so like, yeah, that's that version of Christianity based off of that. And obviously, you know, it's heavy on Jesus. It's heavy on forgiveness and repentance. It's heavy on like, you know, like doing good and like spreading the good news and stuff like that. And Jesus being the way, the truth, and life, whatever. It gives you like, you know, lots of value systems. I remember growing up, there's this fruits of the spirit. And like as a kid, like, you know, they make you learn the fruits of the spirit, like peace, patience, whatever, tenderness, I don't know, all that good stuff. Love. And like that was important, and I certainly grew up on that. That was a value system. But anyone that knows just like, you know, 5 seconds of philosophy has heard of Nietzsche. And like, you know, Nietzsche early on said God is dead. And I think you know, some of the interpretations for that has been that religion is no longer like, you know, the most dominant value system. It probably is in comparison to other value systems. It's just not as dominant as it was in the past, where like, you know, like we had religious leaders, like church and state were the same, and that was kind of how things went. And so basically I think kind of what he was saying was now people are kind of just figuring out their own value systems on their own. And I don't know, Nietzsche definitely had like, you know, his own postulations and his own ways he thought society would go. But I just wanted to pose a topic to the crew here, because obviously myself personally, I grew up Christian, not necessarily Christian anymore, but I have similar Christian values, and I have values that I've picked on for myself as well. And those form like, you know, like my base decision making criteria. They're like kind of like just the way I evaluate the world. And I know lots of other people in the world have, you know, new value systems like, you know, stoicism is something that has become very popular, mindfulness, something that has become very popular, like, you know, minimalism or, you know, self-help, you know, personal growth has become like a big thing. Environmentalism and sustainability become a big thing. Like, you know, people are primarily viewing the world through you know, their cultural identity, whether they're American or whether, you know, they're Nigerian. Like, that's the way they evaluate systems. So I'm just naming a couple examples here, but kind of just wanted to open the floor to you guys. And is my observation something that, you know, you guys have seen as well? And if yes, like, you know, what are some of the frameworks you guys use personally, or, you know, that you found interesting?
To dive into this, I actually have a question, maybe for the both of you. Like, I'm curious to hear your guys' side of this, because I think between us three, I'm the only one who, like, I didn't grow up religious. Like, I think I'm the only one between us that didn't grow up religious.
Sure.
So I'm just kind of curious, and, you know, answer this however you want. But like, when, you know, religion is such a big part of your life, and belief systems and values are a part of that, and that helps kind of shape your ethics, your morals, and everything. How do you separate, like, or is there a separation between kind of the baseline principles and values that you carry out through your day-to-day versus your grip on the belief of the story and the religion itself? Like, do you find separation in that, or is it all hand in hand? Like, that's what I'm curious about.
Kind of as in like,
Does that make sense?
Can I follow the morals of Christianity without believing there was an ark and then there was a Tower of Babel and
like,
there was a Garden of
Eden. Do you find
Eden?
that conflicting with each other? Like, how did you deal with? Because right now you guys are obviously very different people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, religion is not the same thing in your life as it once was, right? But needless to say, I think it's fair to say, at least, you know, some of those values that you grew up with, you still have.
Yep.
Right. So where did that separation come? Like, how did you figure that? Does this make sense? What I'm asking?
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it
Do
does.
you want to go first? Go for it.
Yeah, so like, just so I understand the question, you're basically asking like, because you're saying like our relationship with religion is obviously different now than it was growing up. So what is it that maybe happened that caused that transition in the relationship, and like taking still some of the things from the religious aspect that we still apply to our lives, like why are those still in our lives but the other things aren't, kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, if that helps answer the question, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I mainly want to know, like, is there a separation between the religion itself and the stories and everything that is told along the way, and the values that you learn? Like, a lot of people, when they find out, or, you know, again, I'm not trying to, you know, cast assumptions here, right?
Yeah.
Some people will grow up with religion and then they will no longer believe in religion. That's just kind of like what happens in the world, right? But some of those people as well, they can't hold those two things together, right? It's like when there's a conflict with the story, they end up reevaluating everything, and then they go somewhere else for their belief system and their value system. But other people, they keep those values as well, and they find separation. So I'm curious where you found your separation between that, if you still have that separation, or if you had to do what a lot of other people do, which is like break down and completely build back up.
That's good. That's a good question.
Okay, yeah, I can go. I think as I've grown, I've been able to separate it. I think you're like, for me, I can speak through my experience and my experience only. At first, it was what you described, which was I broke everything down and I was like, fuck that, I've been lied to, whatever. And then
Your morals are fucked.
Yeah.
Fuck morals.
no, fuck, I definitely went through my fuck moral stage. And obviously growing up, and I started to like, I went through a period where I was like, no, like it's very important for me to build my own value system, because I feel like I'm just floating right now as a human being. And like I started to build things, and you know, like I started to read different books, and I started to read different books and like look at different things, and I discovered, hey, like a lot of religions are very similar, and like a lot of people that are good people say the things that a lot of these religious books say. It was one of those things where when I broadened my knowledge base, just past my one religion, then I found like, hey, like more people believe in this than I thought. And that let me know, okay, like the details might be a little bit like, fuzzy, and maybe I might not agree with the details on some of the stories, and like not every story, but like there's a lot of those stories that like form parables that are just like wise sayings that have been co-opted into, do you get what I mean? Like love your neighbor as yourself, or, it's the same thing as like, treat everybody equally kind of thing, right? And that's like a general good saying, you know what I mean? Like anyone that wants to live a good life, like you should do that, whether you're Christian, you're a Muslim, you're a Buddhist, or whatever. Like, it's one of those universal things. So I feel like I started to find some of those things where I would just call like universal truths for just like a good person. And when I started to do that, then I was like, oh, like, all right. Like, you have to look at things as like an adult now, and you can't just take a sledgehammer and like use it against the whole religion. No, you got to take like a scalpel and be a little bit more surgical with, I love this sentiment. I understand what they're trying to, take here. The story and the way in which they told it, okay, that could be fixed, but the message here remains like clear. And then I was able to like, separate that. So I think I was, and I think there's just certain things like, like at least the version of Christianity that I was big on was love. It was big on love, and it was big on a specific type of love, which is the love that, like Jesus dying for one of, and I think that's like, empathetic love, that's sacrificial love. And like, when I was building my own unconditional love, yes. And when I was building my own personal value system, empathy became one of those things that became very, very important for me to cultivate. And I found like empathy and unconditional love extremely, extremely similar. In fact, I would say come from the exact same place. And I was like, I'm starting to understand this. And I'm not now I'm not looking at it from this is what Jesus wants me to do. I'm looking at it from hey, like, you want to be a great human being. You want to be someone that people around you would love to be with and love to be around. And like, do you know what I mean? These are the things that you'd want to do. And so in that sense, I was able to stop viewing things. Yeah, I was able to stop viewing like, like at least like the Bible and even the Quran to a certain extent, what I was reading as kind of like a religious fanatic. And I was starting to view it as just kind of like a student reading a book and studying. And like, you read books, and like we have our book club, right? And it's like, oh, there's things we agree with. There's things we don't agree with. There's sentiments like, we think are great. There's sentiments. And like I started viewing things like that where I was like, hey, like there are very powerful things here and things. And a book that I read too that helped with this was The Book of Joy with the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, where it was two religious leaders at the top of their separate religions, like being able to come together and say, hey, like, we're preaching the exact same message of love and joy here. We're just doing it through different stories, through different meanings. And we think like, like people shouldn't get lost in the how we're delivering the story, but the message is the most important. So that book was very, very instrumental in terms of like, how I was able to demarcate that. And then just obviously broadening my knowledge base as well helped me separate that. So yes, it is possible to separate, at least for me.
Yeah. So for you, it was kind of more like taking the core out of these stories and like however you want to kind of position it, like taking the core message out of those and then kind of evaluating like outside of this context, does it still make sense in my life?
Yes.
And through that journey, you were like, a lot of these things still make sense. And that's why like you continue to practice those things.
Spot on.
Yeah, I think I think very,
sorry, just a quick follow-up to that. Do you think all of that would have been possible if you didn't? Because I know you said you had to break everything down and then you realized that wasn't the way to do it. Don't take a sledgehammer. Do you think you would have been able to come to this conclusion if you didn't do that in the first place?
I don't know that I would have. I'd like to think that I would, but like I don't think so. Mainly because like I feel like when you're religious, you're just into the religion, right? And I guess one of the things I don't like about religions is like the way we do things is right, and every other way to do things is wrong. So like and maybe that's my interpretation. Maybe that's not exactly true, but I do usually get that vibe from religion. And at least me personally, when I was practicing that, I did view things that way. And so that might have,
Yeah.
hindered me. But I do know there are people that are Christians and are religious that do view things that way, where they go after the core message and they understand the core message, but they also like the stories and the way it's delivered. So
I would say like in general, first of all, I actually agree almost 100%. Like I think like in terms of like, why is it that I would still practice a lot of the same things as I did when I was a practicing Christian is because I think a lot of those traits are things that I still identify with, and they identify with me outside of a context of like whether or not these things are going to lead me to maybe going to heaven, or whether or not this just makes sense to me for my quality of life and my experience here on earth. It's a complicated question when it comes to religion, because I think like when you think about religion in its like infancy and its history, right, is really like the seeking for the purpose of life, but in a way that, and I want to just add like a little thing from my perspective, it's like the seeking of the purpose of a life in a way that helps sustain other humans. And I think like when you think about like what life is for us as human beings, it's like a good life in general, like again, just my opinion, for the purpose of society, is one that allows you to work well with others and work well as a community. And like, to me, the two core principles of those, and also the two core principles of religion, and they're the exact same. It's empathy and discipline, right? So like, I think religion across all disciplines, it has the principle of empathy, like get a deep understanding of yourself and understanding with your God and understanding with others, and in discipline in terms of like, and then act out your life purposefully, right? Like don't like act according to just whims in general. Where I kind of get uncomfortable with organized religion is like, I find that when you're talking about, for example, like our God is the only good God. I think in scripture, like if you take things out of context, it probably, in the Bible, it probably explicitly says that somewhere. I would be curious to know the scripture that surrounds and the context that that's involved in, because I think that's really important. But I think the element I don't like about organized religion is the human element, right? Like at the end of the day, every church, even whether it's two Protestant churches or a Protestant church versus an Orthodox church, it's always humans' interpretation of these things. And it's like, we also live in a world where, like money's a thing. And if your church is more profitable, it's nice and blah, 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 right? So when I went to church, I kind of thought about it as like, there's three broad categories of people. There's people who act because they don't want the bad side of religion. So like, I'm going to do this. I don't believe in it, but like, I don't believe in loving others like myself, but I don't want to go to hell. So I'm going to do it. The second category is like people who don't necessarily believe in the action, but they love God. So they're willing to do it. Does that make sense? It's like, so it's a little different because they're like, I don't agree with this, but like, I don't disbelieve it. I just love my God. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And then the third category, I think, are the people who believe in God and also like actually tangibly believe in the things. And like the way I describe that is like God kind of touches their life in a way that gives them that level of empathy. That's the way the church I went to would describe it, sort of thing. So to answer like your question, D, like I think same vein, but I think the only thing I wanted to add there is like religion and a lot of the purposes of life, I think, like creates an environment that allows us to work well as a group of like as a collective community, in my opinion. Like whenever you're talking about life purposes, I don't think there's many life purposes. There probably are, but like there isn't many life frameworks that probably have you isolating yourself and just going off and like you know what I mean? Like most of these, the end goal is for you to become a functioning and productive and impactful like a member of society. And I think like whether it's religion or other things, it kind of always has that as a vein, if that makes sense. So that's where I kind of also take things from, because it's like, if you're going to be a successful human in society, you need to be an empathetic one. You need to be one that's disciplined and all those other things. And, but I do think religion is good in many ways too. Cause I think the last thing I'll say there is like, just the sense of community is really important. And like, I think community is the most important thing for most people, whether or not like they communicate or not. And I think like religion, kind of gives you purpose and community, which is like, I think.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question real quick? Do you know what sect like of Christianity you guys were under?
I was also Protestant, but I went to a Catholic church, and I also like went to an Orthodox. I worked at an Orthodox camp, so like I know like the broad differences. Like for example, in Christianity and Protestant Christianity, we don't worship the Virgin Mary.
No.
Another element is like if you ever go to a Protestant church, you'll never see a cross with Jesus on it, because in Protestant religion we more focus on the glory of his recovery instead of the pain of his suffering. Orthodox Christians, obviously, there's a much heavier emphasis on the Old Testament. Also, most people don't know this, but in the NIV Bible, it doesn't include like tens of chapters that are in the original Orthodox Hebrew Bible. So in the Orthodox religion, like basically in between the Old Testament and New Testament, you know how Psalms is like one of those like transitionary like chapters. Like there's actually like tens of more chapters that like they'll refer to, for example.
Yeah.
That in the NIV we don't. But those are like the very broad. There's tons. The other one is like in Catholicism, like all of the priests and stuff. Like it's a strict hierarchy, right? Like from the Pope all the way down to like the local Catholic church. Like it's like literally like a skill tree. Like sorry, like I don't mean to dumb it down like that, but you know what I mean. Like it's like if a Catholic deacon is getting promoted, like the Vatican, like I believe they actually have to approve of it. But like in a Protestant church, like you can just go to like you don't even have to get formal schooling, and you could as long as you're baptized, I think you can be a pastor. Like you don't need like a formal training.
I went to a Presbyterian church growing up.
Okay.
And that one focused heavily on community. And that was like that was the biggest thing. Yeah. And they were like, we meet up every like once a month. We all get together as an entire church, do family events and stuff like that. Yeah. So there's definitely like I feel like different priorities amongst each different sect.
Yeah.
I was kind of like blessed to kind of grow up with that, but at the same time, I was in the position of like my parents are doing it, so I'm gonna go to church.
Yeah, same.
And then I came into the idea of like, okay, they're doing this and they're forcing me, but what in a way can I actually win out of this? And so let me try to give it my all. And then I started, you know, devoting myself to that religion. Yeah. But then I took philosophy class.
And it all crumbled.
It really did, because it was like, I learned the first lesson of Plato's cave. And as soon as you learn about that, it's like,
very interesting.
I should give the benefit of the doubt to the other side. So then I started studying more philosophy. And then I started picking what I want to like kind of guide my life, as you say, as a framework.
That's so fascinating you say that, because I was gonna say like transitioning this to more of like a personal note about like frameworks for life in general. Like for me today, right? Like when I was growing up and I was a Protestant, I actually got baptized. Like I'm a baptized Protestant. I no longer go to church, right? And sometimes I actually like genuinely I think back on that moment and like my decision to go get baptized and stuff, and like I don't feel great about that. You know, there's like a level of shame that's associated with it, because it's like, that's supposed to be a lifetime promise. It's like, you know, like to God and all that stuff. And it's one of those things where like, when you like just me talking personally about like my framework for life now, like one of the things I always ask myself is like, am I purposefully making this decision? You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where like empathy and all of those things, those are all core values. But like one of the things that I've been so hyper focused on recently is like, okay, like you feel the need to do this good thing, but like, why do you feel that need? Or like, why are you thinking about doing that? So like, not necessarily like, okay, this is the way I would make a decision, but more so like, at least one of the things I've been adding to my framework is more so like, given that, you know, you want to live a disciplined and empathetic life, it's also like, why are you doing this in this moment? Do you understand why you're doing it? If something happened and it made you upset, do you understand why it made you upset? Do you understand why you're reacting in a certain way? How does this relate to maybe other problems? So that's one of those things I feel like, even coming out of that childhood of being like very religious and like having that framework, and, you know, like as a kid acting in certain ways because you feel like you need to because of this religion. It's now like because honestly, sometimes I genuinely think like, am I a nice person just because I grew up acting like a nice person and now it's just like ingrained in me, right? And like, what if like I actually am not nice, because a lot of times I'm doing nice things and I'm like, I don't like this person, you know what I mean? Or like, well, or I'm like, yeah, you know.
To that, I feel like we should. So I was gonna add like, people live like with religion, like heavy religious people. They live their life with like kind of doing something for this, right? Yeah. And so there's, in a way, inadvertently, there's like a condition there. And I try to guide my life in the sense of like, give the human more gratitude and more, I guess, like compensation for their like effort. And so when I do things for myself and I'm really just guiding my life, I'm giving myself the benefit, like, I did this, you know? Yeah. Like if I want to go out and do something nice, then I'm doing this for the sole purpose of being nice to this person. And in that way, kind of, I start to think in a way that like it's less conditioned. I don't know.
No, I think I totally agree with you, and it's I guess understanding that the reason why you're doing this is because you want to do this, and not because of any like result at the end of this, or because of what somebody else is going to say, like how they're going to react to you doing this, but solely because this was something you wanted to do and you felt like doing, and yes, therefore like you went ahead and did that, and that's all the satisfaction you need. You don't need anything else from anybody, kind of thing. And I like that you put up existentialism there.
That's because that's exactly what we're talking
about. Yeah, that is and
like individual freedom.
Yeah.
Like questioning it, like, is this my free choice?
Yes.
Like, am I making this decision because I want to do this? Am I making this because I feel like I have? It's actually really interesting seeing you guys talk about this and kind of how you came to this, because like, I didn't have religion to use as a backboard. You know what I mean? It was like this kind of came up through experiences for me, where it was like, oh, I would, be in classes or whatever it was. I'd be talking to people. You get rough feedback from people, and you kind of just have no choice but to overanalyze that and get existential about it in a way, because like I didn't have religion to run to and be like question like, why is this happening, and then chalk it up to whatever I need, whatever it allows me to chalk it up to, right? But it does seem that existentialism is very core between all of us, whether you do religion or you don't do religion, because you just need to question things at the end of the day. And it's important to question yourself as well, the reasons why you do things. Not to say that you shouldn't do them, but just to understand why you do them. I think we're all very curious, religion or not. I think that's the curiosity drives a lot of our core values and beliefs and how we want to come up with
And
that.
if you're a listener and you don't have like a religion, or you do, and you want to stay within that realm of bliss, and that's your life. And
that's your life,
By the way, like I actually like, I don't know if this would be a crazy statement to make. I think generally people who are religious, whether or not they mean to or not, they probably act in a way that's probably more beneficial for the average person than someone who's not. Like this is a super broad-faced statement, but like if you have a tangible community, which is continuing to tell you, first of all, you have community, and second of all, you have like some sort of rough guideline, right? One of the things I was kind of thinking about when you guys were talking about this is like, there's like this trope, and it's very popular in like movies, where it's like this person has like a very devout way of thinking about the world, and then like when they're 40, all of a sudden they just go fucking like complete sideways. It's like,
bro, I was thinking that literally 1 week ago. Like I was literally thinking of like an old white man who's like down on his like ropes, and he's just like, you know what, Christianity.
Or it's,
Buddhism.
Right.
They go to Tibet.
There's a couple out there, but I wonder in that situation, like it's, I find that so fascinating, because I think either side is like okay, you know what I mean? Like it almost reminds me about like our question about decision making, because it's like one of those things where it's like, if you are super devoutly religious and then at the age of 40 you're all of a sudden like, for the rest of my life I need to like go and just experience a ton of crazy shit,
be hedonistic,
be hedonistic and blah blah blah. Like, does that mean that you're a completely undisciplined person, versus if he just bit down on his mouth guard or whatever and just did that for the rest of his life? Like, what is the more virtuous life? And then I guess the point is, if we don't die, if when we die there isn't a God there that is like, Dolapo, you're going to hell or heaven or whatever, then the answer is either of those decisions were perfectly valid. It's just his experience, right? Like at the end of the day.
No.
I mean, the thing here to understand is the folks who believe in religion and practice it, right? They, whether afterlife is a part of that, that's a core driver of why you do things, right? So everything you're doing now in this life matters for the life after, right? If you do not believe in religion and you think everything ends right after, it doesn't even matter at that point whether or not you die and you find out one way or another, because you've decided that your life is going to be lived for now. And whether or not you die and there is something after or there isn't, you're kind of satisfied because you came out with a life that you chose and you decided to live by.
Well, I wish I could say yes to that, but I'm not gonna lie. If I die and I found out like, oh, it's Buddhism or whatever, I'd be like, the fuck, man? Like, I would have done my life a little different. You know?
Man comes back as like an ant.
Like, bro, I'm coming back as like a fucking I'd be one of those sea like corals that like are just doomed because the ocean's rising. I can't even move.
No, and I wanted to ask, with like, are there any of the newer like frameworks that you guys subscribe to? Like techno optimism is a huge thing, because like, you know, like we live in the Elon Musk world now, where going to Mars has become like, you know, parlor conversation. You know, there's a lot of people trying to extend life, like, you know, longer than possible. Like, you know, there's the brain chips and that we're gonna put in our head. Like, is that something like you guys, like, you know, like humans, like, you know, living in the cloud, and like that's the way, like, you know, we move there? Or even the sustainability cult, like as it's called, like there's absolutely a sustainability cult. And I think people just group most young people. I mean, Luke just mentioned being a coral that's, you know, doomed. I don't know why he just assumed corals are just doomed, but like, you know,
statistically, man,
Statistically, it's not in the right.
That experience could be bliss.
it's not looking good.
Yeah, who knows?
It's
Like,
not
I mean,
looking good, man.
you can say humans are doomed too. Like, I mean, we're only gonna live like what, 80 years and be gone. Like, how long do corals live? So
We're all
like,
doomed. Like death is pretty much guaranteed.
all of that to say, like, any of the new, I mentioned 2 new ones that are pretty cool. Like that, do you incorporate them? I think I incorporate some elements of that, like
Techno optimism.
Yeah, but like,
Techno-optimism, for sure.
yeah, go ahead.
I'd say like the past few years, like my like belief system around techno optimism and like futurism has increased tenfold.
Yeah,
And it's one in part obviously due to the jobs that I've worked. 2 in part to my environment, like people like you. You know, we've kind of had these topics just come up in the house. These are things that are of interest to us, and because it's such a core belief in the future, it is a core function of me and who I am, because now I'm trying to position myself to take advantage of a future that I think is very likely.
yeah,
And I think that's ultimately what it is. So over the past years, 100%. I think subconsciously our generation actually has techno-optimism kind of just coded in our DNA.
yeah.
Just from, you know, being young and having access to technology and things like that. We're actually kind of the last generation that saw a little bit of that no tech. Just like the very, very beginning of our lives. Like we're the last people who saw that. After us, it's just this techno-optimism. That's that. After us, it's just that. Essentially.
Yeah, and how do you think like it manifests? Because like I have a couple ideas of how I know techno optimism manifests in my life. I'm curious.
I feel like it does manifest like pretty well. Like looking into like how like space exploration has like expanded, I feel like we will achieve a lot as humans, especially in the time period in which we are alive currently. In terms of like bigger picture though, I try to ask myself like, what kind of impact does it really have on me personally? So for example, like I think about like the movie Interstellar a lot, and how he's able to travel light speeds, but when he comes back, he can't have that experience anymore. All that time is just gone to him, right? Because
his kid is older than him.
Exactly. And so in that sense, I'm like, what is the bigger picture here? Like, sure, there is like this movement of technology innovating and becoming better, but am I a part of that wave, or am I just experiencing it? And if I'm just experiencing it, what other priorities can I kind of put higher on the list?
I think like to me, like I don't know what they would say. My guess for what they would say to that question is the inspiration behind it is altruism. And it's this idea of doing like more than just myself and making myself a bigger part of humanity and as a whole. It is, I think, like more of a sacrificial lens in the sense of like think about this, right? Like, let's say like the world were to go super hard on nuclear energy, and like, you know, you got all the opportunities to do all of the nuclear infrastructure and all that stuff. The reality is the people who truly benefited from it are the future generations. You know what I mean? Like if you go to Nigeria and you establish all of these, you know, deep networks, and energy is much more accessible as a result, education and water and all these other things become so much more accessible. You will benefit from it, but like you're not growing up in that society, right? Like your kids or their kids are the ones that benefit from it. So like that's to me where it comes from. Which I think like that is, I was even going to answer like that is a sign in a way that I think we have stronger, let's say, frameworks. Because like I was thinking about this, like when AI came out, right? Obviously, whenever things come out, the focus is always on the negative. People are like, "Oh, people are now going to
Take our jobs.
Yeah,
No
and
more
also like
jobs.
there were some pretty messed up things that happened with like the deep fakes and things like that. But think about one of the first things that did happen. Like the teams at Google created all these whole new gene mappings using AI, and they won the Nobel Science Prize this past year, right? Like there's a human being and there's multiple human beings who are incredibly intelligent in this world that when something like that happens, their first thought is, I can use this now and I can get a deeper understanding of the human body. And I don't know what that, like, I don't know exactly what will happen, but maybe someone else in the future will find something, you know, help with cancer or help with diabetes or et cetera, right? Like, that's not something that might benefit them. It might, but like, it's kind of just like, I think it's really amazing that that's their first thought. They're like, let me go and do that. You know, like that's not my first thought when it comes out. I'm like, oh, how can I write a blog faster? But you know,
you saying that is interesting because obviously altruism is another framework that you can use, right? And I think what we're uncovering, at least through this conversation, we'll probably like know this too deep down, is the frameworks are all delicately interconnected. Like many multiple different frameworks. And I don't know if it's always been this, you know, throughout history. I can't confidently say that, you know, we're so young at the end of the day. But I think because we have access to so much information, because we have access to so many different points of view, we can watch TV, we can watch, you know, we can watch a Christian person who makes a movie and compare it to a Jewish person who makes a movie and compare it to a Muslim person who makes a movie. And we get 3 different fundamental messages, you know, even if it's the same story, they're going to be slightly different. And I think that in itself is wiring us differently as a generation growing up. We can honestly tap into any of these frameworks that we've discussed today and see that it relates to a decision that we've made in our lives or the way that we've treated our parents or the way that we've interacted with our friends. You know, I think that's really important to understand, and that in itself might be a framework as well. Being able to be flexible, unique, modular, I think is modular is the word of the generation. I think whether in any walk, right? Like you go through like fashion, modularity is popular, right? That's mode right now. You go through technology, modularity, being able to plug and play, that's big right now. I think in our lives we should practice modularity. I think that's a great framework because it lets us be flexible with, and like you said, you know, your entire relationship with religion ultimately evolved to become modular.
Yes, it did.
Right? Everything that happened led to it being modular, where you were able to say, hey, I want to take this and I want to leave this and I will replace this with this.
Put some techno optimism in that bitch, some sustainability in there.
We are becoming the technology we were creating. Yeah,
we are. Like, you know, sprinkle some existentialism.
Just a little bit.
Love me some Marcus Aurelius. Like, you know what I mean? And then obviously, like, a big part of it too has been the identity, social politics. You know, like I remember I was having I went for dinner on Friday, and this might be like a side thing, and I'm gonna end it soon. And we're talking. My cousin works with the World Bank, and she works with all these countries, and obviously some of these countries aren't doing too well. She works specifically the American, African, South American, and she was talking about taking a gendered perspective towards security, and in my very skeptical manner, I'm like, oh my gosh, do we need a gender perspective? And she's like, of course we do. Like, she's like, when you're talking about security, you have to start talking about women and, like, you know, their reproductive health and, like, you know, like things like that and like their access to resources and then getting married off. Like, that plays a huge part in women feeling like secure and safe. And if you're just thinking about security from like a male, like, you know, gendered lens where it's like, okay, like, you know, freedom from like, you know, like being robbed or, you know, being able to keep your possessions, then you completely, you know, lose track of like, you know, people's bodies and their organs being sold and them being, and I was like,
of why you're doing the thing in the first place.
Like, you know what I mean? And I was like, fuck, that might be one of the most compelling uses of a gendered perspective I've ever heard.
Shattered Dolapo's world.
Shattered everything. Like, you know, at the dinner table. And I was like, wow, like that was like incredible. Thank you for sharing that with me. And I'm glad like you're doing work that allows you to take on that perspective. And like, I know personally, like knowing my cousin and who she is, like I know that is a big part of the way she views the world.
Yeah.
Like obviously, and she's a woman as well, right? And so obviously when I'm saying something like, why do you need to take a gender, like she's like, you dumb fuck. You know? So just as an example of just like those frameworks and just letting people know, like Arya said, being modular and just knowing some of these different frameworks, hopefully we've been able to share and obviously come that like, it's I like your takeaway, and I think I'm just gonna co-opt that. Like just being modular and being adaptable, and merging things together to create that future that you want or that life you want. But go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, sorry, I have no comment about the custom points, but speaking to what like Aria was kind of talking about earlier, I really like the modular thing. So I went to like this business conference. It was kind of waste, to be honest. I mean, I'm not even gonna name the business conference because I don't want to give them free advertising. Like all I'm saying is this:
because you're so powerful.
If you brand yourself as one of the biggest business conferences in all of Canada, you better do a better job than what was that conference we had in Ottawa in university? By Accenture.
Oh, I know which one. Oh, it was orange, right?
Yeah. Legacy conference.
Legacy
conference was 1,000 times better than this conference.
Legacy is huge.
But at the conference, one of the things that the VP marketing at Hyundai was saying was with the advent of AI, EQ and IQ, like intelligence quotient and emotional quotient, will be replaced by adaptability quotient because your ability to change is something that is really important. And I actually want to end with this. Speaking about the frameworks and how they combine, one of the biggest ways I think that we were all talking about this is like, just like how your sister impacts you, the people around you are, I think, the most impactful for your personal framework. When I was growing up, like a lot of my friends were Christian, and it naturally worked like that. Now, a lot of my friends aren't Christian. Maybe that's the reason I don't go to church, but I still practice a lot of the morals of Christianity. But just to end with a practical note, like one of the things that you and you guys, Dolapo and Arya, you guys have added to my framework, maybe you would call it stoicism, but it's the idea of like embracing and enjoying and, just like being in the moment. Like I think like I find myself having a lot of conversations with you guys about how like the job at work right now is actually a job that early on in university I would have dreamed about. And like the fact that, like 4 years into like my marketing career, and I now already work at a place where at some point in my life, I was like, it'd be really awesome if at any point I could work on campaigns that would be on TV and do different things like that. I would be in a really good place. But, a lot of times I find myself very bitter, so it's like one of those things that you guys actually always remind me that like, this isn't where you're going to be for the rest of your life. And like, it's important that you realize that your goals now are where your reality now, where your goals at some point. And as a result, it's important to like reflect on those, enjoy them, and really like celebrate them, because otherwise it's like, why are you living life? I think that's something that like I dearly like missed in probably the first like 18 to 20 years of my life. Like just the ability to reflect on what's happening now and be like, okay, this is pretty awesome. Like I'm not saying this is going to be it. I still want more than this, but this is pretty awesome, So,
I don't blame you either. Like us, our generation specifically, being on social media all the time. Yeah, everyone's always telling you where you need to be, what you need to be doing, how you need to be doing it, how successful you need to be at it. It fucks with you. Yep. It really does. And that's what leads to like 18 to 20 years of just unsettling, just not knowing where you're supposed to be. But Davin made a great point. It's all about the lived experience, which is what this whole thing is about. Which is what this whole podcast is about. If we ever bring on a guest, it's about lived experiences. Anything we've ever talked about is about lived experiences. If we speak out of our ass, we'll probably call ourselves out, which we have in the past, but it's all about what we've seen and what we've lived. So we'd love to hear your thoughts as well. What are your frameworks? How do you go about life? What do you see when you wake up and you look out the window? Let us know. We'll leave a little engagement thing on the episode this time, which we haven't been doing. But that about wraps it up for us. Thank you everyone for sharing. Thank you everyone for listening to us yet again, seeing our beautiful mugs on your screen every single week or every other week. It's been real, and until next time, one love.
Aces.
What?